Hi everyone, I'm back with another video from the Season 28 PTR. Now, originally I was not planning to make this video until we get the final patch notes, for obvious reasons I guess, but I get questions about this all the time, so here we are. People ask me, how would I unlock the tree, what is like the most important stuff? And while I want to see the final tree in the patch notes, I think that we can talk about the general concept of it already, so let's go. So what you need to know is that the cost starts scaling up the more and more. You see this here on the left. These are the costs for unlocking each of the individual nodes. And there are also a few like special points. For example, the challenge with cash at step 15. This is like the biggest point of discussion here, I guess. Are you going to sacrifice it or are you going to use it? I made that video originally right when the patch notes came out, saying that there's basically no way you would use it. And in general, that answer still holds true, but we learned a few things that also makes using the challenge with cash for faster leveling a bit more viable. So what I mean is, if you are not playing enough or you're just playing very casually or very slowly, you can definitely use the challenge with cash to level as usual. In fact, even faster because of this second node here with the no level requirement. Leveling is going to be a breeze. But you can also level quite well with not really that much of a time loss if you try a little bit, even without the challenge with cash. So in my case, I'm absolutely going to save the challenge with cash for the sacrifice. And for anyone who is playing efficiently, and let's say around 20 hours or more before the Monday evening in NA or the Tuesday morning in EU for the second challenge with cash, I think the play is absolutely to save it. If you are playing less than that and you really don't want to level slowly or something, then yeah, go ahead and just use it. Or you can also have someone else use the challenge with cash for you. So what I'm talking about is that there will be people that group up basically, one guy from NA, one guy from EU, and you just do the challenge rift for each other, opening the chest, crafting all the level 70 items, and then you on your main account can save it so that you just have like a bunch of level 70 items from someone else, which are tradable. The yellow items are tradable. And you just have this easy leveling anyway without using your cash. So this is most likely what a lot of people will do. And then you have like a bunch of other things here, like Ancient Hellfire. You have to do like a few Ubers and whatever, a few bounty runs. I'm going to get to that in a second. And then at step 25, near the end, you have to get the Staff of Herding. I'm going to have a guide on that as well. But this is like really the one big grind of this entire tree. And I don't really see that changing. There was a lot of discussion about the never-ending questions. So that seems to be changed for release as well. And we're going to see how exactly that will look like in the end. But this set dungeon grind is most likely gone. Now let's get into the actual tree. It turns out that going the right side is absolutely the play. So originally it looked like you go right side only if you use the challenge with cash, and you go left side otherwise to speed up the leveling. But leveling is actually faster no matter what on the right side. And you also get a really good follow-up with 25 movement speed. So this is kind of the first few nodes here, and you go to this middle path. Now from here, I believe the absolute most necessary node to take is the double bounties. The reason for that is that, as you see here on the left, you need a lot of bounty materials to actually unlock everything. So you need like, I think, a total of 90 bounty mats. You also need a Ring of Royal Grandeur, and you also very likely need another Ring of Royal Grandeur for your build, so that you can put it in the cube or whatever. So you definitely want to get this double bounty early because it simply speeds up your progression. I think up to this point, this is really straightforward and a no-brainer. And then comes like the one decision moment depending on the builds you're playing. So there's the resource on crit, which is also unlocked here in the middle path. And resource on crit for certain builds is going to be pretty strong. And for almost every single build other than that, does nothing. So that depends on what exactly you're doing. But for example, if you're playing a Meteor Wizard, which is one of the best builds in the game, yeah, resource on crit is pretty huge for Star Pact in particular. Or for example, if you're playing a Raker Barb, same thing. Or even with Light Monk. So yeah, a lot of these top tier builds actually do profit from this. But as I mentioned, most builds don't. So that depends on what you're doing. You can take this or you can take this later. So either you take it now or you take it as like the last thing in the tree, basically. Now let's assume you don't need it. You go here to the CC immunity, which is very nice even for the classes that have it, but especially for all the int classes. You go to the pass ability, which is the illusory boots, and then you get the double Kadala legendaries. So you definitely want to rush this early as well, because it helps you to gear up your character. You can gather all the items you need for your build after getting a Helix gift set, etc. And you can start blasting super easily. You can even start getting ancient items, you can augment them soon, etc. So gearing up is going to be really fast, especially also because of this. And you also unlock the strongest potion power by far, which is the shrines and pylons. Now, we believe that especially the pylon part will get heavily nerfed, but even the shrines are really nice. Even in speedruns, they can help you a little bit. And if there's any kind of like pylon powers left, they're really going to speed up your progression, and they're going to be way more useful than any of the other potion powers. So if your GR70 primal turns out really trash, you sacrifice it right here, else you're going to wait for another drop. Then we go here to the left and we get the progress orb and the percent damage. So this is really nice. The progression orbs really help you to speed up the runs. I guess the typical speed runs are going to be something around like 15 to 20 seconds faster just because of this node. So you get the loot faster, you get the XP faster, and you have the option to get the next potion power here. And then you go through the middle to unlock the third potion. This is not really that important that early, because you need a lot of primals at that point. You need a total of 6 primals to get the third one. And potentially some of the primals you find on the way might be something that you might want to save and use. So you don't really have to go for this very early, but let's just assume that we're going to get this to unlock the potion later. So in this case, I would take the boss damage, or you can also take the auto pickup. I think both doesn't matter all that much until you start pushing, where you definitely want boss damage. For speed farming builds, most of the time you don't care that much about just killing the boss like a second faster or so. But if you want to do any kind of like, day one pushing or so to like boost your gems or get on leaderboard or so, I would definitely go with the damage. And you have the third potion ready to go. At this point, we are at 12 steps. The potions don't actually count for these steps here on the left. They have their own cost. And now comes a very crucial step, which is the permanent XP pools. So I talked earlier about the resource on crit. If you have taken that, then you're going to be here at step 14. Else you're going to be at 13, so I have one more before the challenge rift cache. So in that case, I would pick up the elite damage, which is just very helpful to speed up your runs again. And then the permanent pools, or you skip the elite damage and just take the permanent pools as the step 14 if you have the resource. This is definitely the step where you absolutely have to take the permanent pools, especially if you have used your challenge rift cache and you didn't save it for the sacrifice. The reason for that is that at this point you're going to be well set up for speed farming. You can have like your GR90, GR100 speed farming build, blasting through those rifts, and permanent XP pools actually start mattering. Now they don't really matter before that, because you level up to 70 and get a bit more XP, okay, and then you get like your first rifts done, like GR30, GR50, something like that. But the truth is that your paragons and your XP absolutely does not matter before you start blasting like GR100 plus rifts. Like the XP you gain is absolutely trivial, and speeding that up a little bit does not help you at all, because later on you do like 3 runs and you got all that XP back that you have gotten in the first like 5 hours of the season basically. So here, once you have all the stuff unlocked and you have your build ready, you want to take the pools. And especially under the scenario where you cannot progress this altar any further until the second challenge rift, so like 3 or 4 days into the season, you definitely want to take this here so that you get the extra XP all this time. You keep grinding until the next challenge rift cache and you can continue. Permanent XP pools at level 70 means you get 41% extra XP. There is a bug that the 25% XP double dips on closing a greater rift, and this bug has never been fixed. So the Paragon gains are going to be really crazy, and you're going to notice that, especially because you also go higher tiers from the season theme itself with the extra power. And at this point, you can also just like start filling out most of the rest of the tree with all the extra stuff that you're getting. So you get like, for example, the 25% elite damage reduction. I think that's a very useful thing to have, especially if you have like a speed farming build with Squirt's Necklace and the Molten Wildebeest combo. 25% elite damage is going to be very noticeable, especially if you want to do early season pushing, etc. I would definitely grab that early. And also take the elite damage here, and then you can take the 25% reduction here, and suddenly you're gonna be like super tanky. And this is all, you know, relatively early in the progression still. And then you can just like pick up all the other stuff at the end. So you can go for a bit more damage here. This 200 damage is gonna be something like 7 to 10% DPS, depending on the weapons you're wearing. And then you have like another 10% damage here. And then you can pick up like the auto orbs, the auto salvage, the auto DBs, the double DBs, and the dodge and the resource on crit. So in the end, like after step 16, I'd say it doesn't really matter that much of what you're gonna do. One thing I want to mention here is that there are these quality of life features like the auto DBs and the auto salvage. You might want to take those a bit earlier if you really care about DBs and you really care about auto salvage. But in my opinion, I think these things sound a lot better than they actually are. So while they do work relatively well, we have tried this on a PTR, they don't really have much of an impact. Like DBs, I mean, no one really needs DBs anymore these days. You get so many DBs in Torment 16, especially if you have Sage set. And well, that stacks with Sage set, you get times 40 DBs, up to 16 per pack. But realistically, it's not really helping you. You don't really have the materials that early in the season to use all those Death Breath. The same with the auto pickup for the Death Breath. You don't actually have to try hard to pick up enough of them to use them. But if you're planning to farm a lot of bounties in the early days of the season, you get a lot of normal materials and you can actually use some DBs. It might be worth picking up earlier, but most people don't really do bounties, let's be honest. And the same goes for the auto pickup and salvage of common, magic, and rare items. So you don't actually find that many of them. Maybe in T16, when you click on weapon racks and there's like these white items popping out, that is a really good like passive income of materials. But outside of that, you don't really find yellow items in Greater Rifts. They're almost always just full legendary, or maybe there's like one yellow item in between or something like that. It doesn't auto salvage the stuff that you gamble from Kadala, for example. You still have to do that on your own. And yeah, compared to what you can get in bounties, especially with double bounties, like this auto pickup stuff is trivial. One thing I want to mention here is that if you don't have the challenge with cash anymore, you will lose probably something like 2-3 GR tiers worth of damage. So if you look at this here, we have the 200 damage, we have the 10% damage. That's like around 1 tier on its own. There's a bunch of elite damage. And then it comes to elite damage reduction, missile, and melee reduction. So this is really significant toughness. These two things together make you twice as tanky against elites. There's also a dodge that you're missing. So in general, if you don't sacrifice the challenge with cash and you get stuck at step 15 for a few days, you have to know that you're going to be roughly 2 tiers weaker and you're going to be way squishier than other people. So just to keep that in mind. Your leveling might go a bit faster, you might save half an hour, maybe even 1 hour if you're lucky. And other than that, yeah, you're gonna notice the impact compared to other people, especially if you're trying to push a little bit early on. So my suggestion is still definitely sacrifice it unless you're playing very little. And even if you do that, you could get a boost to 70 if you start a little bit late, for example. Just ask a friend or in communities, and you don't have to use the challenge with cash for leveling at all. You don't have to worry about it. Or you do this other strategy that I mentioned with teaming up with someone else from another region, and you just do the challenge rift and open the cache for each other while the person saves it on the main. And that's it for this video. Let me know what you think about this path that I chose. And if you have any other ideas or any other suggestions of what else to take first, let me know. I'm quite excited to hear that. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.